So just for whatever it's worth, next up is guest speaker. Omar, I've known for years and years and years, been a musician. I know he's going to tell his story. Hopefully the old stories from a long time ago.
Oh, it's all coming out.
Exactly, good. Well, very cool. Without further ado, come on, Omar. Congrats.
Thank you. All right. Hello, everybody. Congratulations to everybody. I'm excited to be here. I don't know how much, if you've ever had any interest in composing music for film or TV, but if you have, then tonight is your night.
Yeah.
So, my name is Omar. I have known John for more years than I would care to admit, strictly out of vanity. I actually interned for you many moons ago when I was... Actually, I tell you something... We're going to be kind of off the cuff tonight, but I owe a huge debt of gratitude to you, and I don't know if I've ever told you, but I'm going to tell you right now in front of everybody.
Great.
Which is, I really learned how to record music and like how to harness sonics, if you will, by working with you.
Okay.
And it like kind of set the stage for a lot of decisions that I made later in life, and that I continue to make to this day. So,
awesome.
I interned with John, and
what year was this?
This was 1905, if I recall. No, this was 1999. It was January 1999.
Fortunately, it was 100 years, above that, but yeah.
Thankfully, I'm very old. No, but I interned with you, and then I was a performing musician, and I was 22. I was fresh out of college, and like so many, I was like trying to figure out, what am I going to do? And I'm like, I want to be a musician. I want to be a performing musician. And then I was playing in this band, and I had this epiphany. I was on stage, and I think I was playing the guitar, and I thought, this is not for me. It was, I remember like it was yesterday, I was like, this is not what I want to be doing. Like, I am not comfortable being in front of a bunch of people. I am right now, of course, but present company excluded. But, and shortly after I had that moment of clarity, I was like, well, what is it that I want to do? Like, I was kind of, there's only one thing I really like in this world, and it's music. And I always loved film, and I grew up loving film scores and loving film. And in school, I spent the majority of my time in the music school, but I got a film degree. And so there was like a light bulb that went off. I was like, why? Why am I a moron? Like, why did I never like draw this connection before? And that kind of changed my life. And what ended up happening is I moved to LA when I was in my early 20s, and without knowing a soul, and it was very hard and very, there was no kind of specific path. Like, I didn't grow up in the family of the arts, and I didn't really have any mentors to kind of tell me like, this is what you should do. Like, if you do this and this and this, then it will lead to this, this and this. It was very much the blind leading the blind, me leading myself. But I got to LA, and I kind of floundered around for a little bit, and quickly figured out what I wasn't good at, which is always a good thing in life. I met somebody who was an executive producer at a music house. Actually, I know the story. Sorry, I told you, this is going to be ad-lib.
No, it's good.
I was in Austin. This is 2001, maybe 2000.
Yeah.
And I had come up with like a demo reel, which, I mean, my demos there weren't many of them. And so I sent the CD off to all these music houses, the music houses that did commercials, because it's the only thing I was like, it was the easiest point of entry, I guess. And nobody got back to me. Nobody would take my call. It was like one of those stories, But one day, probably 4 or 5 months later, I got a call, and from this person that was an executive producer at this music house. And she said, I listened to your demo CD. And this funny thing about the story, I'm going to come back, it'll all make sense, is that this person is like a really good friend of mine now. I've known her for 20-something years.
Yeah.
And I asked her, I was like, why did you listen to the demo CD? And she said, I don't know, I was bored, and there's like the stack of demo CDs, and we don't listen to unsolicited stuff, and for whatever reason it was slow that day, and I just like looked at the thing, pulled the CD out, and it was mine. Just dumb luck,
Yeah.
And then she called me and she said, do you want to write a commercial? Or she may have said, have you ever written for a commercial? And I was like, yes, of course I have. Of course I had not. I had no idea what I was doing. It was completely aimless. Grossly unqualified.
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. That's how you get by. And so I started doing demos for them. Yeah. And I was still in Austin. So then I moved to LA, and I lied. Actually, I did know one person. I knew her. And so I went, here I am, I'm ready to take over the town, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And which did not happen. I mean, things take time. But anyway, so I did commercials for a little bit. I was grossly unsuccessful at it. I think out of all the demos I did for commercials, I don't think I ever won, because it's very competitive. Maybe 10 or 20. And,
so they do it on spec. Can you describe that?
Sure. The way it works is there's an ad agency, they need music, they send a brief to, let's say, 5 or 6 music houses, okay? Yeah. The music houses will have their in-house composers, which are probably 3 to 4, and then a number of freelancers do demos. So basically, if you do the math, let's say there's 5 music houses, and let's say there's 10 people demoing each place, so it's like 1 in 50 chance.
But are they paying you at all, or is it?
Some of them do. Now the thing is very different. I haven't done a commercial in a long, long time, so I don't know how much it's changed. But back then, it would be like they would give you like a demo fee of $250, $300.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money back then.
Yeah. So it was cool. It was just Yeah.
But it's like a 30-second spot, and it's just try to spend a bunch of time doing it, spend 10 hours trying to do a 30-second thing and totally overanalyze it. And so I did that, and it didn't really work out. And then by just a chance meeting, I went to see a friend of mine play at a club, and he's like, hey, you should meet this person. And this person was a session singer, and she knew these 2 guys that owned a company that they specialized in music for trailers.
Music for trailers.
And I was like, huh. And this is kind of before trailer became what it is now. Now it's this thing that everybody tries to do. Back then it was a much smaller segment of the industry, if you will. And so I went and met these guys, and they're like, oh yeah, let's do it. Do you know how to do a trailer? Yeah, of course. Again,
of course.
Do nothing. But trial by fire. And so I did that for 6 months, and I was semi-decent at doing it. It's similar to commercials in that there's a whole bunch of people that are trying to get their music licensed in trailers, and if you get it licensed, it's actually quite a lucrative payday.
Yeah, because it gets run over and over and over.
Yeah, well, it's the upfront fee, the sync fees.
Right.
It was. I don't know about now. I think it's the same thing. I haven't done a trailer in God knows how long.
Well, they want to buy you out, right?
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily buy. It's just it's a sync license.
Right. Right.
But it was quite lucrative back then. And so I would get one, and it'd be like, oh, that's so amazing. So I did that for a little bit. And
so let me ask you a question real quick about that. So I'm surprised they don't use music, like music you're doing now for the trailer.
For the trailer. Right. That is incidentally what I thought as well.
Yeah.
I was
why are they pulling music?
It's a very different. I'll give you the real reason.
Yeah.
The real reason is that oftentimes when you see a movie advertised, like you see a billboard or now trailer online, YouTube, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. The score's not done.
Okay.
The score is
they're still recording it, so
they're still writing it possibly.
Right. Okay.
We're going to go back to the train analogy. Okay.
Right.
When you're making a film or TV show, the production process. Actually, even before pre-production,
goes right all the way
written all the way to completion is multiple years sometimes.
Yeah.
And the music is almost the very end of the train.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's the only thing that happens after the music really is the mix.
Yeah.
And then it's done. And then you get into promotions and advertising and all that stuff.
But how are you going to use it if it's not mixed, right?
Exactly, or if it's not even written,
Yeah,
That's really one of the more daunting things. You see the film that you're working on advertised, and you see the date coming, June the 2nd, and you're like, shh. I don't know if I can curse. And you're like, oh my God, I have not, I'm so far from getting done with this thing.
So you haven't even finished writing it yet.
Yeah,
You've got the billboard up.
And so that is a big part of the reason of why you won't hear the score in there. The other reason is that trailer music is, and especially now, it's a very specific aesthetic. It has very much an arc to it, and it's overly intense and all these things and dramatized. And a lot of times the trailer music is a lot more intense than the score. And so the score wouldn't work anyway.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I did the trailer thing for a little bit, and then another moment of dumb luck that actually did change my life, this one was consequential, is that I, by sheer chance, got a job working for this guy named Stuart Copeland, who used to be the drummer in the Police. And at the time, he was still a very active. Whenever the police broke up, he got into film composing, and he did a bunch of the movies, like the big movies in the 80s and probably early 90s. And so he was still very active in that whenever I met him. And I worked for Stewart for several years.
Yeah, you were there
and,
for a while.
And I literally learned, it was like getting a master's degree in music from like the man.
Yeah,
essentially,
right.
you know, like everything I mean, to this day, I still have a bunch of like little tricks in the bag of, you know, rhythmic tricks, harmonic tricks, and that's a Stewart trick. I totally pinched it from him, but that's what happens. But that literally changed everything, because all of a sudden I was in a situation where I was working on stuff that had big budgets, and, you know, everything is, you know, you get to record live orchestra and, you know, spare no expense and work with the best orchestrators, and then you go up to the orchestrator and you're like, hey, how did you orchestrate, whatever, the woodwinds? How did, you know, and all of a sudden you were like in the company of these people that were very qualified. And so that was like, this changed everything. Like the thing about scoring, composing music for film and TV is, number one, it's not the music industry, it's the film and TV industry. So it's an important distinction. The other thing is it's the commercial arts. It's not art for the sake of art. Art for the sake of art, go write an opera.
Right.
In this case, you know, writing the music is a very obviously important component, but also equally important is the craft of scoring. Like, when should there be music? When should there not be music? Should the music run in parallel with what's going on the scene, or should it run contrary, you know? And when should you have the music hit every single cut? If it's an action film, that might work. If it's like a drama, you're gonna ruin the film. So it's one of these things where, like, being around him, I learned like how to write music to picture. So that like kind of changed everything. And then through him, I was introduced to a bunch of people, and I worked for him for several years. And then eventually you have to leave the nest. And by then I had gotten like my first feature, and it was a disaster. But that's good. You need to, you know, you have to training wheels. And then I got to the second feature, and the second feature actually did well. And it went to Sundance and won the thing, and the standing ovations, all of
Which movie was that?
This was a movie called The TRCOA, and this was in 2008 maybe, or 2009, I'm not sure.
So 8 years had gone by? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at that point I'm like, I don't know how many years in, you know, but you started to learn the thing. And then, you know, eventually one thing leads to another, and, you know, you find yourself where you are. And so that is, I'm skipping a whole bunch of the origin story. I can go into excruciating detail if anybody particularly wants it.
So tell me about Philo.
Oh my God, I'm not talking about an old band.
Philo was the name of the band that he had when we were 20 years old.
Yeah. It's like a high school band, but it wasn't in high school. No. There's the answer. Sorry? No, I don't even have it. It's
gone now.
It's gone.
I mean,
Luckily, it is pre-Spotify, so it is not there.
This was in 99,
I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But was it good? I would say no. I would say no, actually.
So it's the best. Got it.
It was the best. It's the best thing ever.
It was prog rock.
There's a prog aspect. It was, I would say, unfocused, which is actually, to be fair, kind of makes sense, like given like what I do now, which is I'll work on a project and it'll be like, let's just throw out some example, like something that's orchestral. It's all orchestra. It's all, you know, very natural. Or I'll work on a different project and it's all synth or, you know, very modern. It was all that thing, that band was all over the place, which didn't really work in that format. But as a film composer, now it kind of makes sense. So, but I still would say it's not that.
I can
kind of
see
makes sense.
that.
Like there was like a alt country song on there, followed by a bossa nova, followed by some mathy rock thing and 10/8 or something.
All kinds of time signatures.
That's still my thing. I'm a geek for meter. It's because my first instrument was the drums, and then when I worked for Stewart, it only got worse. It became like a rhythm nerd. But, you know, we all have our hobbies, so.
Yeah.
But do you want me to talk about the scoring process a little further, or do you want me to show some examples?
Yeah, let's do a little bit of both, right? Let's see something that, let's
Okay.
go for it, and then, you know,
Let's
if
see
you
where
want
it
to open
goes.
up to questions and stuff, sure, yeah.
Okay,
do it.
we'll try to do this and we'll see what we think. This is actually it's the title card to a game I worked on. I'm not sure how long it's been. If there's a gamer here, you might know. It's called Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
I'm sure people know that.
Let's see. Here. All right.
Cool.
You can keep going.
Nice.
So this is. I
like it.
Thank you.
You can adjust the volume there too if it's a little too loud on the video
laptop?
itself. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so this is Assassin's Creed, obviously. Very piratey. It sounds kind of what you would think a piratey thing should sound like. This was a long time ago, it seems like. And I can tell you the story about it, actually, is that I was actually not the lead composer on this. This was a while back. There was another composer, a very successful LA composer named Brian Tyler, who something came up, let's just leave it at that, and he needed some help, and I happened to play, and I knew him, and I happened to play the same instruments he played. And so he's like, do you want to work on this thing? And I said, of course, yes. And it was a situation where it was, I don't know about obscene, but a lot of music in a short period of time, bordering on an obscene amount of music in a short period of time. And this was, this is very much, if I were to sum up like what the job that I do is, it is this. It's a lot of pressure to not suck and to deliver a lot of music in a short period of time. And it's like one of those things, and like, 'cause I have this conversation with assistants and interns, like, how do you do that? And it's like, if you do something long enough, you learn how to do it, and you just learn how to do it right or do it well and efficiently. And this was one of these things where it was just, don't overanalyze everything and just execute and hope that you have the skill set to do it. And I guess I did, but I don't know. It turned out okay, so it's fun. But anyway, that's Assassin's Creed.
So it was hectic, I take it.
Yes, it was hectic. Everything is hectic, though, to be fair. Like, I think the difference between me now and me 10, 15 years ago is now I'm very much accepting of it being hectic.
Yeah.
You learn to, that's the other thing, is like talking to a
Stress management.
Yeah, it's just learning to live in the stress and not have it stress you out.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, I know that in 2 weeks I have to deliver a ton of music, and I hope that I will be able to make it happen.
Well,
and you have to, because if you actually,
because that billboard's up.
well, the billboard's up, and again, you can't stop the train. If you stop the train, it's not that big of an industry. People will find out that you derailed the train.
Oh, man.
And then you will not get asked to be on the train.
Well, of course.
So that's one of those things.
So reliability for what you do is big deal.
I think, I'll tell you something, the most important thing in this line of work, yes, of course you have to have the skills. Yes, of course you have to know how to write music to picture and how to manage teams and how to deliver blah, 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 blah. But really the most important thing is trust. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. Yeah. I mean, it's more, I'm oversimplifying, but if I were to like think back, like I remember when I was in my early 20s, I thought, oh man, I should be doing that film. I was grossly unqualified and nobody would trust me. That is the reality. It's like, you have to earn people's trust. Like people, it's the same thing I was saying earlier, like people have been working on these projects for years. And somebody has put up a bunch of money to have this thing made. They're not gonna let any just random person, they're not going to entrust this, very expensive thing to any random person. They're going to have to trust you, and you earn trust. And so that's really like the most important thing. They trust that you don't suck, that you know what you're doing, and that you'll deliver it on time.
Yeah.
It's really the most important thing. Okay, let's do another thing. Okay, we're going to do this one. This is from a documentary. I think this is 3 years old, maybe 4. It's a documentary called Belly of the Beast. It's somewhere, you can find it somewhere. It's on, I'm sure, Amazon or one of the streamers has it, I guarantee it. It's a very dark subject matter. I don't know if we should get into that. It won an Emmy, so that was good. It's a filmmaker who I've worked with. I think I've done like 5 of her films. And we continue to work together. She does brilliant films, and Belly of the Beast. And I don't know what scene this is, so let's find out.
Mostly repeat offenders who were sterilized. Where are they getting pregnant in prison? Like, that's the first question you have to address. Disgusting. Ew.
When the story came out, within hours, there were at least 700 comments. Within a day, there was over 2,000.
Why does the state need to give its consent if the women already are?
We give our criminals way too many routes when they go to prison.
People get up in office and this is like New Jersey.
They can't stay out of jail and raise their kids without our assistance. Why reduce?
Can you explain why you consider these coercive?
Since record prisoners' rights, talking rights are you let the state have this?
Unless you can step forward and show that you have the financial wherewithal to take care of a child, I'm here for you.
They got real ugly. There were days where I just would not look at the comments because I didn't want to be messed up in.
Is that it? Oh, that's it. Apologies.
No, it's cool.
Documentary, very different scoring style than a something scripted. If I were to tell you about documentaries, I would say you have to be very careful to stay neutral, or else the audience is going to realize that you're trying to push them in a direction, and then you will not have the audience.
Interesting, because I would think you would be telling the story, like almost exclusively.
Well, and this is an interesting film because it's a very dark film. It's about women who were forcefully sterilized in prison in California up until like 2007. It's incredibly dark and dismal. And so it was one of these things in the scoring process, like as soon as I tried to let's make the score a little more dark, like a little more, something that matched the picture, it was too much. I can't watch that,
Right.
And it kind of makes sense. It's like, you have to find this happy medium where, the audiences in general are smarter than we give them credit for, because they will know if you're trying to manipulate them. And so you have to
more instinctual.
Yeah. And they'll be like, no, it's not good. Like the audience will be turned off and be like, they won't even know what you're saying. They won't even know why they don't like it, but something is off. There's one of these things I always think about, which is that a bad film will not be saved by music, but a good film can be ruined by music.
Ooh, that's tough.
It's one of these things, like I've had these calls from people where it's like, we did this movie and I gotta be honest, it's miserable. I need you to save it. I'm like, I don't think it's gonna happen. And I don't think I'm alone in that. It's just not gonna happen.
Right.
It's like, I can't save your poorly lit or badly acted or badly cut. It can't be done. But you can have a really good film, and whoever it is making scoring decisions, and a lot of times it's not the composer, the music can ruin the film, and the audience won't believe it, and then it'll get panned by critics.
Interesting.
So,
yeah, that's tough. I didn't really think about that. That's a big deal.
You
just can't screw it up.
You can't screw it up. Just try not to suck. Okay, this one is this is a film called Day One. I think this is 8 years old, maybe. Okay. What should I say about this? It got nominated for an Oscar, so that was cool. Unexpected. I mean, not unexpected to me. I had can't predict these things. At the time that I was working on this, I was going through this period where I was really into Claude Debussy. For some reason, and I'm still a big fan, but, and so I was like, just reading all these books on like, why did he orchestrate things? Why did he break a bunch of the fundamental rules of harmony that have been established for 300 or 400 years, whatever it is?
So Debussy's 1700s?
Debussy is early 20th, really, late 19th, early 20th century.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And he kind of changed, he was kind of, not an outlier, because he became very popular, but he broke a bunch of the rules of harmony that were kind of established. And so I think he did poorly in school because the professors were like, no.
Right.
But then eventually he prevailed. So my challenge on this, because I was listening to a bunch of Debussy, is I was like, I'm going to write a score that's like, for some of this is action, with no strings, no brass, no percussion, I don't think. It's literally, I don't remember how many specifically, like 8 woodwinds. It's just woodwinds. I'm like, can I pull this off? And will the filmmakers let me do this? And the answer is, yes, they did let me do it. So here you go.
It's our uncle and this is their home.
Arrest him.
Sorry.
Yeah.
For some reason, I'm showing kind of gnarly scenes.
Yeah.
Apologies.
That's
but-
awesome, though. Congrats. That's
you.
great. I like it.
Thank you. It's a lot
I
of
mean,
fun.
man, what a great use of, woodwinds, or just being just that restricting it in that way to the instruments is, I think, that's probably what made it.
It was a fun challenge, because it's hard to pull off, and I did cheat, actually. There's one kind of subby pad that's a synth. That's the only thing that's not the woodwinds, just because I need something that's like kind of sitting way at the bottom. But that was a lot of fun, and Debussy, there you go.
Okay.
Let's do another one. This is from a film called A Hard Problem. This is a pandemic score. This is somewhere. It's probably, I don't know where it's at, Amazon, Apple, somewhere. So it's someplace. It's kind of a sci-fi, kind of about AI, but it kind of came out right before AI was like a big topic. I would say this score is very modern, very sound designy. And I think this was my first pandemic score, and so I spent way too much time on it because, like everybody, I was looking for some escape. So let's see. That's an interesting scene because it's like I remember seeing this without music, and it obviously feels significantly different. The music is completely leading, steering the ship.
Yeah. Awesome.
And it's like, this is an interesting score because it's like it's all detailed work, as opposed to the one we just heard before that was all woodwinds. There's not a whole lot of detail there. It's literally 8 players, and you hit record, and you get what you get.
Right.
Add a little synth for just to kind of fill the bottom. But this one that we just heard, I mean, that's all detail work. They take forever. It's like, how do you just craft every little thing? And pedal steel. I don't know if you caught the pedal steel.
No, I didn't.
There's that's the pedal steel.
Yeah.
I started playing the pedal steel a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
And I'm trying to retire it because I decided the pedal steel can do something that nothing else can. It can sustain for days. And then I started using it on everything, and then I thought, I should probably put this to the side because I'm kind of getting carried away. Okay, I don't know how we're doing on time. Are we good?
Let's...
You want to take questions?
Yeah, probably getting close to questions.
Okay, we can do
let's
that.
Let's do it. Unless you got something else you
I
want
have
to show.
a fun story.
Let's do it.
But I'm gonna kill the video because I don't think it serves us any well. Which is, so on this film, the pandemic film, The Hard Problem, I was attached to the film during the script. I knew the filmmakers, worked with them a bunch of times. And I was reading the script, I don't know, 6 months before they shot the film. And I'm reading the script, and it says, it's like the very end, the finale of the film, the big, run to the curtain. And I'm reading it, and it says, score begins, Radiohead song. And I thought,
Radiohead song.
Radiohead song. I was like, what? Okay. So then I finished the script, I called them up, I'm like, what's going on here with this thing? And they're like, okay, what we want you to do is we want you to take a Radiohead song, and we want you to arrange it for orchestra, and make it into this big, emotional thing. And I was like, what's the song? Paranoid Android. I'm like, it's like, it's a very, that song moves around a lot, and I was like, this is interesting. And
you're the one that introduced me to that record.
You know what?
You literally, back when we were 20 years old,
I was
he's
super
like, dude,
into it.
this record is awesome.
And it is awesome. But you know what? I will never listen to Paranoid Android again because this film ruined it for me. But to make matters more interesting, we had to deal with Radiohead to get them to let us do this. Yeah. Because it's one thing to cover a song and like put it on Spotify or whatever, right? That's anybody can do that.
No, to change it. Yeah.
But to sync it to picture is a whole different can of worms.
Yeah.
And so it began by, okay, you need to write a letter to Radiohead and tell them your creative vision or something like that, something lofty like that. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna write a letter to my idols. And so I did it, and so I wrote this letter, and I'm like, I'm going to take your song, and I'm going to deconstruct it and put it together differently, and you may hate it, but I'm gonna do something different. And we sent the letter off, and this is like all going through like, agents and stuff like this, all this stuff. Of course. And they come back and they say, okay, but we get final approval. And I was like, okay, that sucks. Because what if they hate it?
After you do
and
it.
I loved that album. Like, and I was like, if they hate it, I'm just going to feel awful. Yeah. And I'll just be destroyed. Anyway, needless to say, they didn't hate it. It took a while to get to this thing.
They didn't like it?
No. They did approve it. It took a while to get to the final version, because I sent them in this ridiculously probably pretentious letter. I was like, I'm going to take your thing and I'm going to deconstruct it. I'm going to do all this fancy stuff. And then as we got through, going through different versions of it, now this is just me and like the film. This is not with Radiohead at this point. Like they get final approval of the end result. I was like, okay, I'm going to take the back half, which is like this, the Bach kind of part. I don't know if you know the song. We'll get to it in a second. And I was like, I'm going to take that, I'm going to put that in the front, and then at some point, I'm going to go to the verse, and then I'm going to switch to 7/8, and then I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to do this, and it's going to be so crafty, and all this stuff. Needless to say, after countless rewrites and revisions, it actually does somewhat play in order of the song.
Yeah.
And then we recorded it with, I don't know, I think 50 strings maybe, or 40 strings, something, like a large string ensemble, and there's some woodwinds, and it came out, I think it came out fun. And then we sent it to them, they approved it, and of
Nice.
course, like I'm as happy as can be. But what I have, and I don't know if we have the time for it, is I have like, this is what you're seeing, yeah. The purple, these are what the mixer, the score mixer sent back. So you can see everything's in, well, not everything, but the strings are all in surround.
Yeah.
And then I have all the original demos, which I had a chuckle listening to yesterday. But it's a very long piece, so we don't want to have to listen to the whole thing. But let's see if we can find like,
Yeah, check out a few minutes.
see if we can find out where the meat and potatoes come in.
So is this during the credits?
No, this is like the lead up to the credits.
Okay.
It's like this big epic 7-minute finale.
Wow.
Yeah. So this would be the verse. So it's interesting.
He's not playing all the parts?
So strings. The guitar's going underneath it. Actual bass or synth?
That's bass.
That's bass. The synths. I didn't even know that was in there. A little arpeggiated synth. But what makes it, of course, is the strings.
Yeah.
And then if you know the song, the iconic riff, da 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 da. Yeah, it's. I think we did it with 3 or 4 bass clarinets or contrabass clarinets.
Okay.
It was like totally nerdy.
It works.
Yeah.
It works. In an orchestral way.
Yeah, in an orchestral way. And then, of course, I had to throw in an odd meter. Have to. And then if you know the song, the back half of the song is this kind of very Bach-like,
Yeah.
this part, which works so perfectly because it sounds like it should be written for an orchestra. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it keeps going and going and just gets massive. I'll skip forward.
Yeah, cool. They must have loved this.
They did. Turned out well. So we did 2 passes of orchestra, just a pass of the ostinato, like the shorts, and then anyway, that's that.
Yeah, that's
It was
awesome, man.
kinda fun.
Congrats, dude.
Thanks, man. Thank you. That's somewhere out there. I think it's on Spotify and the film's out there.
Yeah,
But anyway,
that's super cool.
That's what I got.
Yeah, man.
So-
Well, very cool. Well, so let's open up for maybe a few questions if anybody's got any. Is there any? Yeah, let's go for it.
I'm not gonna lie, I've been watching film scoring videos on YouTube all day today.
Oh, cool.
One thing I saw a lot
Okay.
that I thought was really cool, and I didn't really think that it was, I never really paid attention to it, but like manipulation of certain instruments or creating new instruments for a specific sound. What's the most interesting thing that you've done outside of like the normal scope of?
Outside of your orchestra and your traditional instrumentation? That's a good question. As far as like an instrument in and of itself, I have this, I don't know what it is. It's like a noise machine. I'm not sure what it is. It's like a wooden box, okay, that has a copper plate on top. There's an instrument out there that's similar, which I can't remember what it's called. But okay, so wooden box, copper plate, I think 3 or 4 or 5, whatever, piezos on the bottom of the copper plate, and then a bunch of guitar strings, bass strings to be precise, coming out. And then there's a preamp in it and a fuzz box. And so what you can do is you can literally tap the copper plate, and you get like a, kind of like a kick-esque sound, and you can flick the strings in and go plop. And so, like, I've used it on everything. I used it on that Belly of the Beast score. I don't know if it was in that cue, but it's all up and down, a bunch of stuff. And another one of those things, like, this is like a recurring theme in my life, which is like, I'll get into something, and then I'll really get into it, and I'll be like, I should not do that anymore. It's too much, Like with the woodwinds and with the pedal steel. I had like a good 2-year run with the pedal steel where I'm like, this is so awesome. And I was like, I'm using it too much. I need to not do this. And same thing with that box. But other than that, I mean, I have that's not really an instrument though, but I have a reamper, reamping box, that I don't ever use it to like reamp a guitar or anything like that. It's just, it's like a stereo in and out reamper that goes to a bunch of like cool pedals. And so I'll take something seemingly normal, like let's just say a piano, let's just say. And it'll go into the pedals and it'll just come back into the computer as like some different beast entirely. Like we're living in a really great era right now for guitar pedals because they're all stereo and they all sound awesome.
Yeah.
And so like that's my my new thing I'm into.
Would you use a plug-in too, even if you wanted, right?
No.
No. You're like, no.
I mean, sure. When time is not a luxury, or when you're really like doing something quickly, yes, the plugins get really quick. But
like guitar amp plugins, you know what I mean? That's
sure.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, but the real pedals, there's something about the tactile feel of everything that that I'm into. So
yeah. So and anybody who doesn't know reamp, whenever you're recording, you should. If you don't right now, track a DI with every guitar you track, right? And the reason is because then you can take that direct signal from the guitar back out, plug it back into a guitar amp when the guitarist is gone, and then re-mic the amp, and that's called reamping, right? And so you can also plug that back into an amp modeler too, in Pro Tools or any DAW, and do the same thing as well. So you want that DI because if your mic's bad, you've got a DI to redo things with. Okay?
Or you're in the mix and you're like, man, I don't know why we used that amp. I wish we'd used a Fender amp instead of that heavy chunky thing. And like, oh shit, we have to record it again. No, you don't.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Reamp that thing and it's like you just did it. It's amazing.
Yeah. And you can play around with the tone all day long because the guitar player doesn't have to sit there and play the guitar part over and over again. So yeah. Anyway. And you can make crazy pianos sound amazing too.
You can make anything sound weird. It's really like my passion. The reamping box.
So what else? Do we have another question in here?
Where do you start in the process? Like, you watch the film first or whatever you're composing for first, and then take notes basically on like where it needs to like go up. Like in that one scene where it was like everyone was about to start fighting and stuff, and so the music sort of swelled up, and then right at that calm moment, the music made it like.
Okay,
So where do you start with the process?
Right. I'll try to give a concise answer, but I will probably fail. So, whenever you start a project, there's something called a spotting session, which is it'll typically be a composer and whoever is steering the creative ship, be it a director, producer, showrunner, whoever. And we will go through and say, hey, it really needs music from here to here, and so you'll keep something called a cue sheet. A piece of, did I already say this as far as vocabulary? A cue, C-U-E, is what you call a piece of music in a film or a TV show, right? Yeah. So cue sheet is just basically like a spreadsheet that says, this, you need music from here to here. And then, write notes, it needs to crescendo at minute, whatever. Right. But the other thing that steers the creative ship
Does the director make that cue sheet?
No, it will typically be a music editor or an assistant, or sometimes if there's none of those, it'll be me, and I'll begrudgingly make one. But somebody will. It's not it's never done by the producer or director. But the other thing that is I think it's fair to say, a double-edged sword is temp music. Temp stands for temporary. Yeah. Whenever an editor is cutting the film or the show or whatever, A lot of times they want something to give pace, to give like a cadence or tempo, establish, something to cut to basically. And they'll put music in there. And a lot of times by the time the composer gets to it, there has been music that has been living with these scenes.
They're used to it.
Yeah, and it'll be there for like a long time. And that's called temp love. And that is where the double-edged sword comes in.
Right.
Because sometimes the director will be so in love with what was there that's going to be replaced that you'll constantly be chasing that.
Right.
And then it's a big can of worms because then there's like, obviously I don't want to knock off this thing, you know. I want to do my own thing. And then there's, the best part, or the best, and I'm being ironic, the worst thing is like when they've temped it with something like iconic.
Yeah,
and you're
right.
like, why? I did this film for Netflix last year, and they had temped like the big scene like leading up to the end of the film with Ennio Morricone, which is Good, Bad, and Ugly, like very famous film composer, with I think it was like The Ecstasy of Gold, which is like if you heard it, you may not know the title, but if you heard it, you'd be like, oh yeah, of course. There's like very famous piece of music. And I was like, why? Why did you put that there? First of all, I'm not going to beat it.
Right.
That's number one. Right. Number two, like, you're never going to get that out of the head of the director. Like, I will always fail. But then there's projects where there's no temp music, and you're on the other side of the double-edged sword, wherein you're like, you have to start from scratch. And you're like, what do you want for your film score? And they're like, I don't know, let's just try some stuff. And then you're on this like reconnaissance mission trying to figure out like, well, does it need this? Does that work? No. Does it not this? How about this? And it's like, it's directionless until you finally figure out like what the thing is supposed to be.
I'd probably put my own temp music in there and then say, what do you think about this?
And well, a lot of times that's what I'll do. Like nobody else will know, but I'll be like, what's gonna work for this thing? And you're, but you can't tell anybody you're doing that. It's just for me. Anyway, long-winded answer. I apologize, but.
No, that's pretty short. But
oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Cool. So I have somebody that asked also if we wanted to pursue this field, where can we submit scores currently?
As in how to get a job?
Answer that in however you feel is the most appropriate.
How can somebody get a job being a film composer?
Specifically, it says, where can we submit scores currently?
Presumably to get a job.
Well, of course.
Okay.
If they wanted to pursue the field.
Sure. Okay, so this is a frequent question. Is like, okay, how do you do it? The way that this industry works, and it still works that way, is because that's how I did it, and it's still really the way that people do it. Is it? I don't know if I said this earlier. I may have, and I apologize if I did. Typically you go and you work for somebody and you learn the ropes. And then at some point, you meet some of the people, and at some point somebody throws you a bone, and they're like, well, there's this project, and I don't have time for it. Do you want to do this? And, and it sounds like it's not realistic, but it's really kind of how it works.
It's very common.
Very common. And so, like, if you want to get into the film composing world, I would recommend finding somebody who does it, that presumably does something that you like, and see if you can work for them. Either intern for them or intern and then work your way up to being an assistant. And once they trust you, they'll be like, hey, you want to do a couple cues on the show?
Yeah.
And that's really how it works. I mean, the other question, this is not the question, but it's going to lead to this because I have a feeling, which is, do I need to move to LA? And the answer, of course, is it's hard to give that answer now post-pandemic, and everything's kind of decentralized as far as the entertainment industry goes. But, it helps obviously to be in a place where there are a lot of people who do what you want to do.
Well, it's more you need to follow somebody somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I mean, studio, wherever things are happening.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I think especially for film, you're going to have to be where some things are happening.
Yeah, it very much helps. I mean, the other thing is, actually, I'll tell you, a good answer, now that I think about it, for the question is, if you want to get into film composing, go to your local film school and go to, I don't know if they have bulletin boards anymore, I'm showing my age, but whatever the digital equivalent is, and say, hey, can I score your short? I will do it for free.
Yeah.
In fact, I will cover the cost of musicians. I will do the whole thing. Please let me do this. And, you'll get some people who say yes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have a portfolio piece.
Well, and that's what they're doing with everything now, anyway. So that's good. Good advice.
Yeah. Trying to be on point. So there.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Yeah,
good
and
answer.
that's more, would be more up and coming indie people that you'd be working for, but they could also pay you to do those scores eventually. They're going to come up with budgets to do those films.
Well, and
so they may not be very well known, but they're going to be something.
Well, really the answer is this. This is something I've noticed the last 10 years or so, which is, you come up with people. That's why it's like good and I have found this thing to be true, which is directors or people in general are very shy to discuss music. Not the musicians. I'm talking about like the directors, producers, writers. They're somewhat timid to talk about music because they feel like I've heard this so many times. Like, well, I'm not a musician. I don't know how to talk about music. And I'm like, that's good. I don't want you to be talking to me in musical terms. I want you to speak to me emotionally. Like, I need it to be more sad. I need it to be more happy, bigger, smaller. But I forgot where I was going with this. There was a point.
Well, you were talking about coming up with people.
Yeah, no. Now I remember what it was. Is that a lot of times you'll notice this thing like that such and such composer has done every film that this person has ever done, like a scored their film. And the reason is that people are so apprehensive to talk about music that a lot of times they find their person and you're like, you're my guy, And so you come up with people, like people fresh out of film school or in film school, and, something may happen for them, something may not.
Right.
But, you gotta...
But the more people you work with, and you're right, they may come up and they realize they'll remember you and be like, man, we need to have this guy on the film.
And there you go. And then you know what? Cut to 15 years later, and you have a bunch of people that are in places of prominence, and you're like, I just had to get older.
Yeah. I just had to get older.
You just have to sit through it.
Amen.
So, yeah.
Well, cool. Well, so I'm going to ask one last question, and then we're going to wrap up and chill and finish barbecue and stuff like that.
What you got?
So I always ask one last question. So imagine you were 19 again, right? And
I tried not to, but yes.
Yeah, right. Well, but imagine you are right now,
Sure.
right? And you're thinking about getting into all this, right? And you're like, you're here, you're doing whatever, you're trying to get into it. What would be your best advice looking back?
Ooh, if I was 19.
If you were 19
now.
But
not 17.
Well, they could be 20, they could be 30 even, doesn't matter, but nonetheless, brand new, right now,
Sure.
trying to make it happen.
Best advice. Because there is an age component. That's why I'm thinking about that. If I was 17, I would have told myself to go to USC, which has this amazing film program. Would have been a great thing. But, you can't do it. You're 19 now. That ship has sailed. Maybe not, but I don't know. I don't know. I guess my advice would be if you want to, if I was talking to a 19-year-old, I'd say, if you want to do it, then just put everything you have into it and just like become a sponge, Like when we met, I was grossly unqualified to arrange anything for an orchestra. I cannot stress that more.
Yeah.
But it's one of these things, like as soon as I was like, I'm going to do this, I will go through these periods, like I'm going to study orchestration techniques from the 19th century. And then after that, I'm going to study this, and it's like I'm constantly just trying to push myself to like suck less. It's a gross way to put it, I apologize. But, a vulgar way to put it.
Sure.
But, that's the thing. The thing I would say is if you want to do it, then commit or don't do it.
Yeah.
You know why? Because there are literally hundreds, if not thousands of people who would love to do it. And so if you don't love it, and I had this conversation with my son the other day. This is weird. I'm kind of he's not 19, but he's like, Dad, I want to be a composer. And I was like, ooh, I felt like my own father. And I was like, listen, if you want to be a composer, I would give you this advice. If you feel like there's nothing else that would make you happy, and you would be miserable doing anything else, then go do it.
Amen.
And if you're like, well, I could kind of do that, or I could kind of, play Minecraft, it'd be like, you shouldn't do the composing thing. It's not a good thing then,
Right.
Just like do it and commit to it, and because it becomes like your life. And it's a time suck.
Yeah.
It's really, I don't know how else to put it. I don't sleep anymore.
This is a career passion.
Yeah.
Nobody does this unless they can't do anything.
Yeah, there's
else.
easier ways to make money. If you're so lucky to actually get to the other side where you can make like a good living, fantastic. I feel incredibly fortunate. And I know it's like a lot of it is partially dumb luck. You know, right place, right time, right skills, all that stuff.
I think you don't give yourself nearly enough credit.
No,
there,
I'm a big firm believer in self-deprecation.
but you were ready when the opportunities happened. You were ready.
To quote go back earlier in our conversation, faked it until I maked it.
Amen. And you got to.
But yeah, that would be my thing. If you want to do it, just commit and
Never look back.
and never look back.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for having me.
All right, well, cool, and yeah, hang out. Let's finish some barbecue and
Let's do
take
it.
it easy
I'm
for a
hungry.
little bit. Yeah.